Thank you for being here. This is a future collective event, which is an effort to bring together a new generation of people in Sonoma Valley to talk about and kind of bring into our lives and our relationships, acting on behalf of the future of Sonoma Valley. And it's a series that's being sponsored by Sonoma Valley Catalyst Fund. So this event series has mostly been done in collaboration with just a network of close friends, and 𝑤𝒓𝒂𝒃𝒍𝒆 was one of the beginnings of that. And if Aaron, you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll take the mic. I'm Aaron Brown. Probably should stand a little bit. Who does that? Thanks for coming. Dan Marioni, too, partner in this project, which is really, it's important that for this space to do things that we're doing tonight. It's a venue for storytelling on behalf, of agriculture. I think I've said a bit before, wine, food, hospitality, these are all mediums through which we tell stories of agriculture and the land and people that work in agriculture and all the valences of these expressions, which is very inspiring to me. So, so this episode is community, so we have some people here who have devoted a lot of their creative spirit to community. It's an honor to have Chris Renfro come up from San Francisco. Chris it's hard to give a succinct bio for you, but there's the 280 Project, friend of a friend. I mean, you're using all these venues also to excavate these stories and kind of keep the living energy kind of going into into new places. And we'll get to hear more about that. And Lucy, you also have done many things. Currently working for Feed, which is brokering on behalf of farmers, which is a huge. It's just such an important thing to do. Again, you're representing the farm work and telling the story. And you're also a farmer, Flying V, I believe. Anyway, so yeah, Kim, I'm going to let you introduce.
Maria Membrila is a colleague of mine in our kind of day jobs with Sonoma Valley Collaborative, which is the broadest coalition in Sonoma Valley. It's focused now on housing affordability, being funded also by Catalyst Fund. And Maria's, doing Know Your Rights trainings for employers and employees, anticipating a worst case scenario of ICE raids in Sonoma Valley. But outside of that, and actually speaking more from your perspective as just an incredible community organizer in your own right before joining Sonoma Valley Collaborative, conducted the farm worker needs assessment in Napa County, something that Sonoma Valley really needs, and given the opportunity, I think would be the person to do that here. And Elise Gonzelas is also an amazing colleague, whose work is an opportunity that was created by a Catalyst Fund. She coordinates this food security initiative, and briefly, Catalyst did a study and discovered that 1 in 5 people in Sonoma Valley are food insecure, and at the same time, a law passed in California that requires food to be collected from grocery stores and other food providers, but the resources to do that in Sonoma Valley weren't here, and so created Elise's position, and in her role has completely increased the capacity of those direct service providers. And actually some of the food that's being served, I met the truck this morning that, are at the grocery stores, and then the Basque collecting the food that otherwise was going to waste, but instead is being distributed. So it's like 20,000 pounds per month that's now being distributed, and so that's amazing work that Elise is doing. And the rest is from Paul's Produce with Cody, who's here. And I just want to acknowledge like how many people who are here and sort of in the audience right now who have been part of previous panels in this series, which is a whole arc that's been about the use of land as it's dedicated to food and wine production in the valley, labor, and today this panel of people working in food security and food sovereignty and also housing affordability. Yeah. And I want to just go back to the way that the Future Collective has organized has really started with a network of friends. It's rare and kind of special that Catalyst, in asking me and others to organize young people, have really let us do it on our own terms, not just asking us to show up for everything that you're doing, but to create something new and to see where that goes. And because it's really rooted in personal relationships and a network of people that everyone here is part of, it doesn't expand to our whole community. As an organizer, I don't speak Spanish. We've had events here talking about issues without people who are the most impacted by them. And that's something that's evolving, and we're, thinking about, where this will go. But I also, want to introduce Elaine Chukan Brown, who is such an incredible person. It's so amazing to have you part of this series and working locally. Most of their work, if you don't already know, is done at more internationally. They're an author. They finally brought their book that was just published, The Wines of California. It's amazing, but as a kind of historian, and I don't know if you identify as a philosopher, but I see you as that, and is bringing so much to this, not just in shaping the panelists' perspectives for all of you, but is acting also sort of a fifth panelist, informed by all of the research and body of work that you have on these topics. So thank you very much, and I'll leave it at that.
Also, thank you all for coming and paying the ticket price, because we're going to donate the majority of the proceeds to 𝑬𝑬𝑷 Project.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so. Oh, yeah, that's what we're
Okay. Okay, so those of you that have been at the previous iterations of this series know that I always start with thank yous. Traditionally, they've been done at the end of a session, but I think it's really important for all of us that are privileged enough to be able to attend events like this to recognize that's because a lot of people have done a lot of work for a really long time. And the more we can thank each other, the more motivated we all become to do work together and for each other. And I think especially at this point in time, with everything that is terrifying, horrifying, and grief-stricken every day, to be honest, we need that kind of willingness to connect and thank each other more than ever. So let's start there. This has been mentioned, but I hope that you've seen already, the Catalyst Fund has played a really crucial role in giving organizations and people in the community the means to create real change. Part of what's crucial about that is we have to remember that nonprofits are an essential part of how our society functions today. And at the same time, in most cases, they are a temporary Band-Aid to a problem that they will never be able to solve on their own. So what in the midst of that do we do? And the Catalyst Fund, especially with this example of the Food Collaboration Project, it's a great demonstration of using what's there, different nonprofits, but helping them work together most efficiently. to do even more than expected. So I would like to ask you to help me thank, there are multiple members of the Catalyst Fund board here, and help me thank them, please. One of the things that's been really amazing to see in working on this series is Kim's kind of quiet leadership. I think sometimes, I'm going to be blunt, I think Kim often underestimates her skills and talents.
Yeah.
And it's, we're far enough into this series that it's easy for me to say that we all recognize there's so much more than she admits there, and we really are able to be here because of the work that she's done. So help me thank you. This particular series is part of the Future Collective Initiative, and this series, 4-part series, so we're in session 3 today, and there'll be the final one will be in a week. We're able to do this series, and very much because of the inspiration and motivation brought by 𝑤𝒓𝒂𝒃𝒍𝒆 wine and cider bar. Excuse me, I can't believe how could I leave out apples? And I mean, Aaron and I have the same last name, so clearly we're related. Native people have cousins everywhere, so but 𝑤𝒓𝒂𝒃 as a collective has really made this possible, and Aaron has really helped kind of lead the charge to do that. So help me thank 𝒓𝒂𝒃. And finally, we get to do something really interesting today and learn together today very much because of these 4 panelists. So please help me thank them. Okay, so we're going to kind of talk through what we're doing today and as we get the panel discussion going. But one of the things I wanted to make sure we do is think about what has this series been about, right? We're in the 3rd session, the final of the panel approaches, and then next week it'll be a one-on-one conversation with 𝒓𝒂𝒃𝒍𝒆 Guzman, who's been working on farm worker needs across all aspects for decades. I'm really excited that we get to have that conversation with him. But thinking about how we've been using these panels to kind of build understanding through each month of this series, I want us to kind of situate what we've been accomplishing and what it means and how we're doing this work. So Maria, could you just get us started by talking through the 5 pillars for us and what it means and how that ties into the work we're doing?
Absolutely. I don't know if I'm going to I really don't need a microphone, but if you want me to use one.
Here's the other thing.
Okay.
Some of our panelists like to stand. So you're just going to have to deal with that, okay?
Okay,
So
I don't, if they don't stand, I'm not going to stand, but if we stand, well,
Okay,
anyways.
here's the thing. How about each of you stand at some point a little bit so Maria feels comfortable? Okay?
That's an excellent icebreaker, thank you. So when I was speaking to Elaine about all of this conversation and the intersectionality between housing and food and entrepreneurship and farming, I thought about the way that I frame it when I talk about farm worker needs. Specifically, I'm prioritizing farm worker housing, but when you think about farm worker needs, you think about the overall quality of life. And so what are the 5 pillars, or what are the pillars of having a strong quality of life? This isn't necessarily applied to farm workers per se, but in general. The 5 pillars of strong quality of life are economy, having a job, having employment. Why? So we can have the second one, housing, so we could put a roof over our head, over the heads of our family. And then the 3rd pillar is food and food security, ensuring that our families are fed, that they're taken care of, that they have healthy food. And then the next pillar is health, ensuring that our families are healthy, that they have access to health care. And the final pillar is education. So why do I start with economy? Without money, you can't pay for the housing, right? And before I put food on my table, I'm gonna pay my rent. So it's not one is more important than the other. There is a strong intersectionality between these 5 pillars. My focus and my dedication is in housing, but I work collaboratively with farming, with entrepreneurship, and with food security. but the hyper-focus is in housing. Today, you have the 5 pillars, the 4 pillars here, and we're missing one, but we're going to be bringing up topics that are related to those pillars and how they all connect with one another and how they all intersect.
Well, because health also, we don't have a healthcare worker here, right? But there's a sense in which health depends on each of the other ones as well. And if you think about what this series has been doing, we've been kind of building an understanding of each of these pillars that Maria was just talking about. And part of how we're doing that is through mutual education. So if we think of this series as accomplishing one of the pillars, then we can get an understanding of how even this kind of work, sometimes people expect, there has to be a thing to do right now, or we're not doing anything. But actually, education is a crucial aspect of quality of living and having what you need to understand how to address these other pillars. So one of the points I want to bring up is that I think part of what this tells us is that to make change, if we're committed to that kind of collective responsibility of community and belonging in that community, we have to recognize that the only way we can do it is through our skill set in our community. Part of what Kim brought up is that we're having conversations where some of the people that might be most impacted by what we're talking about are not here. That does not delegitimate the conversation. Just as Maria is saying she specializes in housing, we each have to find the way that our skill set can be channeled towards the good that we can affect through the communities we're part of. And over time, we keep building that. One of the ways to think about this, though, is to recognize that we're always operating right now. These discussions are aimed towards building a future for the Valley, for all of us. And the only way we're going to effectively face what's needed in the future is to acknowledge honestly the past. This is not to be stuck in it. This is not to be heavy in it. I like to remind people none of us chose where or to whom we were born. So this is not about blame. This is about recognizing to be part of a community, we must be responsible for aspects of that community. Again, not from a blame perspective, but from an active participation perspective. Acknowledging the past means recognizing that genocide, exploitation, enslavement are all not just aspects of the past, but things we're still facing today. And part of what's at stake in the country right now, and part of why we're doing this series is because those are actively at stake right now. Okay, so having said that, I would love to think about that point, that now, the future, we build from the past, right? So Elise, I was hoping you could just talk us through, you've heard these words in the discussion so far. What is security? What is stability? What is sovereignty?
Sure. Yeah, I think that, as these conversations have developed over the last 2 sessions, a lot of focus has been on food sovereignty. And food sovereignty used to be a basic human right. As a community, we had access to land and we had power over our time. So we were able to have food sovereignty within our communities. Now, both of those things have been stripped from us through capitalism. And so food sovereignty takes away not food sovereignty, but our access to time and land is gone. And we have to dismantle an old system to be able to create a new system. And that is what we're doing here with food sovereignty. But in the meantime, what about the present? And it takes a long time. We've taken 70 years to dismantle systems, and we're still at it. And we should still be at it. It's extremely important to still dismantle and build new systems. But in the meantime, we're in the present, and right now, we need to secure our people in being fed. And that is, for me, that's the differentiation that I've been using for food sovereignty and food security. I think that we have systems that can work for people who are in need currently. We can build projects to be able to feed more people in need. And there's a difference that my heart is completely with food sovereignty, that we need to build stronger farms and food for our people locally.
as well as take care of them currently within a system that exists.
So one of the things to keep in mind is just exactly that point. We've been talking towards long-term objectives and trying to understand what's functioning now in order to build long-term visions for Sonoma Valley's future. But we can only get to this notion of food sovereignty, meaning my community is functional and stable enough and secure enough to be able to create and provide the needs that we have ourselves. Right now, this is part of the limitation of nonprofits, right? Nonprofits function as a gift to people in need. There's a hierarchical perspective that is diminishing the independence and strength and dignity of those people, and also not providing a long-term solution usually, not always. So that's something to keep in mind. We only achieve security through creating stability, and the two together help lead to sovereignty. It's one way to think about it. Okay, so we want to get into some specific examples, though. And so, Christopher, you were working, 280 Project is an incredible program that Christopher has been working on now, and it has played a really important role in expanding the people who have access to developing their skill sets in wine. But you've also really importantly done mutual aid work with the local communities where you live through 𝑬𝑬𝑚'𝑉𝒆 Farm. And so I actually was hoping to get you to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, a good friend of mine, Haley Garabato, and I started a mutual aid collective called Feed the People. And we thought about if we were having a hard time being laid off of work, how hard it must be for other people that don't have the resources. So 𝑬𝑬𝑚'𝑉𝒆 Farm, just to give you guys like a background on it, it's a 3.5 acre public park in San Francisco that has a farm that is all organic and all the food goes to the community for free. So that space is also right next to a pretty large public housing neighborhood called Alamany Apartments, right off the 280 freeway. And we felt like those community members needed people to help them. We also were then helping people in the Tenderloin and different other neighborhoods. But we started a collective where we would do farm-to-table meals with the produce from the farm, cooking on their outdoor kitchen where we would do it once a month. And we would feed about 200 households in that neighborhood. Yeah, all farm-to-table, good, healthy food. So health is involved. So there is health.
Yeah.
I think that neighborhood is in like a food desert, food apartheid. There's nothing within probably like a mile off the freeway. Kids have to walk down like a pretty busy freeway where cars are going like 70 miles per hour to get to food. Other than that, there's a liquor store nearby. So we were able to offer a lunch program similar to the Black Panther Party for Peace, where we would show up at 8 in the morning, have food harvested, have 3 different options, a salad, a protein, and some kind of starch or carbs. And we would basically have 5, 6, 7 volunteers come in, help us do this. So by 11 or noon, lunch would be ready. We would ask people to come into the community to come eat for free. If you had money to donate, then we would take that money to use it towards future meals. But then our background in restaurants, Haley being back of house, me being front of house, I would operate the neighborhood like a restaurant and then food run to the entire neighborhood, knocking on doors, asking families how much food they needed. And it took a while for people to understand what free food was, and especially to feel comfortable with people giving them something free.
I'm going to pause
Go
you
ahead.
and restate that, because I think we need to hear what you just said. It took people a while, people that you describe as in a food desert.
People that look like me, black people.
And in need,
Yes.
to understand what free food was.
Yeah, they did not trust someone giving them anything.
So notice this, okay? We're talking not just about creating programs to feed people or to house people or to help farmers. We're talking about building relationships that establish trust to make those programs work with the people we think we want to help.
Yeah, so it took, I would say, 6 months or more of coming back, doing this every time, for families to start feeling like they'd willingly take food. And then after a while, it became a situation where people were very excited to see us come back year after year. Lots of elders in this neighborhood, lots of families with children. And I think one of the saddest things is when you see a person that's really low, afraid to ask for something, and to feel like they're gonna get made fun of or be held in some kind of like poor light. So it was really cool when people would start telling me, especially young men would tell me that they cared about me and that they loved what I was doing for their community. A lot of people, older people in wheelchairs would be sitting in the dark, things like that, saying that they'd been waiting for food to come to them. And this is just, 10 people doing this one day out of the month. So imagine how often they probably were in this situation. But one of the coolest things about it is it started showing who in the community really helps and cares about taking care of others. So the example I like to give is that our friend let us use his restaurant, True Laurel, to do one of our first pop-ups, which we made about $9,000 in like 4 or 5 hours, knowing how to work in a restaurant, having volunteer staff. We were able to use that money for an entire year to feed people, which is awesome because the plates were like $4 to $5 on average feeding families. Then because of that, we were able to go to other restaurants and different people and say, hey, this person let us use their space. Can we use your space to do another pop-up? And then that's how we would make the money to then feed community members.
That's great.
Yeah.
So again, notice in the middle of this, we're getting a lot of really wonderful examples of using what you have, and still the financial support was also needed, right? So how do we build that, and with recognizing that without that, it's not sustainable, right? And so I think one of the things we forget is that a genuine farmer with a farm business is also running a business. There are people that are really talented at producing produce and farm goods who might not have a skill set around business. And if you're a small farm business, running the business side might be more than you can handle. So how do we create collaborative solutions? So Lucy, please describe what Feed is doing. It's such a brilliant example of that.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I work for Feed Cooperative, so it's a food hub based in Petaluma. And what a food hub is a distributor for produce, but instead of buying from wherever, it's regionally based. So we support farms within the North Bay, and that is by design. And the need was seen 10 years ago when the food hub was formed that farm businesses needed support to stay in business. So Feed aggregates, holds, distributes, and manages the sales for all of these farms. So instead of 30 trucks running down to San Francisco to compete with all the restaurants and grocery stores, one truck is going down there, and all of those restaurants and stores can shop on an online platform from all of the farms in the North Bay who are a part of Feed. And I think that it's proven to really help secure the livelihoods of farmers in this area. And I do want to say, I just want to share a statistic because I think what's really kind of wild about the produce farming industry in the North Bay, or let's just talk about Sonoma County, there are 60,000 acres of wine grapes currently in production, maybe less as of recently.
In Sonoma County.
In Sonoma County. And there are 250 acres of produce farms. And that comes from the crop report from the county, maybe off a little bit. But as I rack my brain, I'm like, that's true. And that just shows where our values lie economically and what trouble we're in when we see this industry start to falter and we don't have land that's diverse in production or for labor, and that the labor force that relies on the wine industry loses work seasonally, and we are not actually producing food in this county. But there are farmers that want to, and actually the land isn't available. It's too expensive. It's in grapes, it's in development. So I think that we actually have capable farmers within this small group that are succeeding, and most of them aren't more than 10 acres. We're talking between 1 and 10 acres per farm in general. that could be bigger. And by making them bigger, you could employ more people. You could drop the price and make it more available to more people. So we're really in like a pickle here. And obviously there's an opportunity because they're pulling grapes out right now. So what do we as a community want to do with the land that's opening up? And I'm here like to say that there are actually farmers that want to expand, that want to grow, that can and can succeed, that are literally unable to access more land. They certainly can't buy it, but they can't even lease it. So, I mean, I think we just like, we got to address it.
Let me pause really quick because I want to make sure we recognize there were two key points that just came up. The first part of what we just heard was talking about, you know, farmer businesses having adequate support. And the truth is, like your point about 30 trucks versus 1 truck, that's going to be easier for the restaurants, right? That's going to be a lot easier and more cost efficient for the businesses too, right? So one of the things I want to make sure people recognize, though, is that feed is a for-profit business. I think we have this cultural thing where we think for-profit is bad and nonprofit is good, but for-profit can be utilized to create community cooperatives that benefit the community. And then your second point was about land access, which we've been talking about as well, right? And so I know you wanted to.
I just wanted to piggyback off the fact that you brought up the 60,000 acres and the astounding number of 250 acres in food production, because I'm eating before I'm drinking wine, let me just tell you. But I'd like to highlight the fact that within our 60,000 acres, we've got about 10 to 14,000 farm workers who are working seasonally, and they're subject to the conditions of the weather. They're subject to the conditions of the market, of us ripping out acres and acres of the wine industry not doing as good as it used to, and they don't have stable employment, right? The first pillar, economy, job and stability. So if they're working 9 months out of the year because there's a seasonal nature to their work, and then all of a sudden the weather kicks in and then the industry's tanking, now they're at 7 months and they're making what they're making, and that's not enough to support the housing that they need to pay for, right? I've got a farm worker coming up to me saying, Maria, I'm making $2,936 a month, and I'm paying $2,500 a month for my apartment. I have 2 high school teenagers, and I have to rent one of the rooms and sleep in the living room to make ends meet because I can't do it. Fortunately for that gentleman, we're getting him an affordable housing unit, but there aren't enough affordable housing units to be able to support the need that we currently have. When we're talking about ripping out vineyards and ripping out, having more and increased access to land, it highlights the point of collaboration. So if this is going to happen, how can we backfill it with food production? How can we increase that? It's through this space, through beginning the conversations here of, hey, Lucy, I've got a couple of acres coming up. Let's figure out how we're going to operate that. Collaborating with Elise, right, on the food security side. So I think the main point that should be highlighted is the problems will be highlighted, but the solution is already in this room. And that is what the purpose of this whole collective is. That each and every single one of you has a skill set that if you're willing to, and you have the drive to offer that skill set, we could do trade work. Because they were called the trades back in the day. They're still called the trades, right? If you don't have the capital, but you have the skill set, you can trade some of that, skill set over for another thing. So I'll stop there.
No, that's great though, because again, like we have the solutions now. And actually, when you have conversations about climate action, it's the same point. We actually have the solutions now, but we need to be harnessing them. And the thing about this series is we are the source of the solutions. We have the skill sets, but how many of us are just willing to ask, right? So part of what happened with Christopher and Alamany Farm is he asked if he could work on this park. Like, what? Like, you just asked? Yeah. And so this point too, we've been saying over and over again in this series, the landowners in the system we have now end up being the decision makers. And so the kinds of issues we're talking about end up coming back to land access. Housing does, food does, stability, security is having a place to live. That comes down to land access, which means the landowners of Sonoma Valley are the ones making decisions that can have impact on those issues. Okay, so Elise, talk us through though how, part of what I love about this is these pillars, like you've seen, if you've been part of all three of these in the series so far, we keep rolling through all of the pillars in every session. So we'll be like, this one is about land, and then we're talking about labor and food, feeding people, and so this is happening again, right? So talk us through the food aspect of this. How does it work with, okay, let me pause and make that clear. One of the things, look, do you see any notes on me? Okay, one of the things that is really powerful about the work you do is not just that you have been brought in to solve this, but you have been able to bring together multiple groups and help them kind of specialize to be more efficient in this piece and this one for this piece. So there's a kind of collaboration of organizations to address food security. But the other thing that's brilliant is that Elise has also figured out how to address these by collaborating with the people that need the support themselves. So could you talk us through both of those things?
Yeah, I think I was really lucky to walk into Catalyst Fund and already have a food assessment done about the gaps that were in the valley. Of course, that's how I created a plan to get where we are. But a few of the things that were most in your face is that there wasn't access points for people to get to. We needed to, so that means who can get to a pantry if it's open from 12 to 1, right? Nobody. Everybody's at work, or it's too limited of a time. So there were things like that. There were other gaps of food recovery that Elaine touched on, that I saw a gap of 150,000 pounds not being recovered just by some calculations. So putting these organizations and starting to have conversations collectively really, really helped solve two different pieces of finding food donation and getting that to different and new food access points with new partners. So being able to have those collective conversations has increased our donated food and increased the access to food, as well as Catalyst bringing Maria and I together, Kim bringing Maria and I together, we started talking about farming and donated food. And within 4 months, we were able to, with Zeke, to collaborate with a winery who donated 5 acres of land. We are currently using 1 acre of it to produce culturally relevant food for our Latino community. Within 4 months, we're about to harvest our first harvest tomorrow and Saturday. And we're going to get that out to new food access points that there are Latino communities, which is church on Saturday and Wednesday. And this is, I'm able to do that because we get to talk, right? If Maria isn't talking to winemakers and people who own the land, and I don't understand food insecurity, then there's a gap between communication. If we're talking collectively, if I'm talking to farmers. Another gap, amazing thing that happened this week is Melissa reached out from Oak Hill Farm and said, I have a donation of food. And I said, I have a van. Let me get your food. So that would not have happened unless I met her here, right? So this conversation, collection of people needs to keep happening in order to find that it's not just nonprofits that need to be in the conversation. Of course, we need to collaborate with our nonprofits. Of course. They have direct access to clients in need, but we also need to be talking with and through our community.
Just that point about making food available after Saturday Mass.
Sunday
Mass. Sorry, I went to church 5 days a week. Growing up, Saturday was one of them. But really, right? This is a perfect example of listening to your community.
Speaking on collaboration, I'm just going to piggyback off of that. Because of the work that I'm doing, thanks to Catalyst. You know what, Catalyst, stand up. We'll have you stand up at the end of this. Because of the work that
they don't like to stand up either.
But the core theme that I'm identifying right now it is because a fund like Catalyst that is mission and purpose driven exists in the Valley that we can do this work. Don't be shy, just say, you're welcome. But the reality is, speaking on collaboration, I think that it's really important to understand that it doesn't have to be complicated. I did a Know Your Rights training to a vineyard owner, a winery with 150 farm workers. We're now connecting with that winery to feed those 150 farm workers who may not know where the food bank is, who may not have the typical, understanding that the food banks exist, who
may not feel safe to go to the
or might not feel safe to go to a food bank right now, or might feel shy or embarrassed of saying, oh, I have to go to a food bank to get some tomatoes and chilies and produce, right, to feed my family. So now we're directly connecting the food from this farm to the farm workers who sustain the economic engine of this valley and of this county and of the state and of the country.
So that economic interest point is crucial too, though, when we're thinking about where we're at now versus where we're talking about wanting to go. The only way to build sovereignty in the kind of system we live in is for us to support through education the development of skills as well, right? And so, Lucy, one of the things that you have done and that Feed has done is again, offer a kind of business support to people that are talented at growing. But one of the things I've noticed is that couldn't we do something like that in another way by having agricultural business mentorships, as an example? Or last time we talked about having an organization where there's a go-to person that helps with paperwork or licensing, right? We don't have that. It's all contingent on the business itself. But Lucy, could you talk us through how does this show up in the work that you're doing? Like you are taking an enormous load, to put it too simply, off of the individual farmers, and you're bringing them together. And also, could you describe how membership works for Feed?
Yes. Okay. Well, one, Feed is a cooperative and a for-profit business, and I do want to touch on this because I think that I would like to see more alternative for-profit business models, cooperatives, in contrast to the nonprofit model, which does rely on what you call a gift, but really it's like kind of not a gift because it's tax deductible. Like it's not given freely. I'd like to see other ways that money moves than in that way. And I think that it doesn't allow for self-actualized communities who are constantly relying on wealthy people to back their needs. And so I believe more in like a cooperative model, for-profit models that support their workforce or their workforce owns in the cooperative way. So a cooperative in the sense for Feed, the producers own the co-op and the workers own the co-op. And what that means is that they pay a small amount to be a member, they can vote, and they receive patronage at the end of the year, which is split up profits based on their sales.
Okay, I want to clarify. So you said both business owners and workers are members.
Yeah.
And both get a vote and both receive income at the end of the year. Is there a differentiation between like owners get more or owners have more votes?
Producers, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, producers do end up getting more of a percentage of the business or the profits.
And then how about with votes? How does that part work?
Every member, one vote, and that's very common for any cooperative.
So workers are given a voice through voting at the same level that producers are.
Yeah, and that creates a framework where we as Feed, we let the farmers set their prices for the most part. It has to work within a model of wholesaling, but Feed's main priority is to take care of farmers. So we're trying to pay them the best price for their work and their labor, and that reflects back to their workers and allows them to pay their workers more and themselves more and afford the lease and afford the rent and all of that. So that's been our priority, but I think, and then we look into the community and our workers next, and then the thing that is harder to do in this model is to provide affordable food to people in need. So that's something that is like what needs to get worked on in the Feed model and is very difficult to meet, especially when you have farms that are between 1 and 10 acres and cannot just drop their prices. It's just simply not viable. What was the
Well, and
second part of your question?
but this is a great example that
The
even
first part?
within one of the pillars, there might be multiple ways it needs to be addressed, right?
Yeah.
And I actually just lost track of myself.
Yeah.
I think I'm still here, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, go ahead. We neither of us know what we're doing right now, but we're all going to get there. It's going to be okay.
One of the things that I'd like to point out
Yeah.
is I completely agree with you that we do need to, first of all, do a more a for-profit, as well as the nonprofit and the for-profit. The need is so big, the world of need is so huge that we all fit in it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
Yeah.
needless to say, I'd like to bring up something because there's a nonprofit entity in Salinas, I believe.
Yeah.
It's called 𝑣𝒂𝒃𝒍𝒆, the mentorship program. They train farm workers and they put them through an education program. And the farm workers who have 30 plus, 20 plus years experience, they can farm like the back of their hand with their eyes closed, hung over. They do it on a Sunday morning, right? They can do it easily, and they don't know the business side. So they go through a mentorship program and they become business owners, and now they have that full scope. And that's what we need to bring. Well, it's here, but we also need to increase the education and the collaboration to that.
Yeah, I want to
Completely
speak
agree
to
with
that
you.
because Elaine brought it up in our conversation. I think that the mentorship model has worked really beautifully in a place like Salinas that is, what is it, $7 billion in produce sales in
Yeah,
Monterey
so
County.
there's a proportional difference,
or
right?
in
Wine
the
to
Sacramento
produce,
Valley,
yeah.
there is the Center for Land-Based Learning that has done similar things. I don't know if that is the current need here. I don't think we have that many mentors. We have 250 acres of produce being grown.
Yeah.
I think what we need is access to land and to let current farmers excel to becoming.
What that highlights is collaboration.
Yeah.
Right? If I've got 25 acres being ripped out, how do I connect those 25 acres to you for you to be able to farm them?
Well, Christopher
Yeah.
is like the king of have you asked, okay? And so
Yeah.
I mean seriously, like our culture doesn't teach us to collaborate. Those of us that have grown up in ethnic communities are probably more used to it, but a lot of us who grew up in kind of mainstream city life, that wasn't part of the deal. So we actually have to learn how to collaborate. But Christopher, you have done an incredible job at asking. And so I was hoping you could talk through that. But also the other thing about work that Christopher has done is that the 280 project very much connects to wine. And one of the things about Alemany Farm and the mutual aid work Christopher has done versus 280 project is 280 project and Christopher have been written up all over the world. I don't remember a single article. Actually, I remember one article about Alemany Farm. Okay, so notice we keep kind of bringing up and sort of implied complaining about how much Sonoma Valley is built to wine. But here's the reality. Sonoma Valley is built to wine. So what do we do with that? It turns out wine is really good at getting attention and talking about these things. So could you just talk to us, like, how did you create the 280 project? How has it being wine changed the work you're doing? You know, the way that you've spoken to people to get it going, that kind of networking.
I mean, so the farm was already existing. The vines were planted 13 years ago. A woman had planted them before.
Let them know where, though, too.
Yeah, so it's in San Francisco on the backside of Bernal Heights. It's tiny. When I got there, it was like 49 Pinot vines still left. And I asked the farm manager at the time if I could steward the space. I literally just went up to her and I asked if I could take over it. So within a week, I was still working a restaurant job. It was December of 2019. And then I had a vineyard in San Francisco. And then I tried to tell all the people at my job that they should come work on the vineyard, and none of them came. And then the pandemic hit, and I had a place to go, and that was amazing. But I think, yeah, the 280 Project is a viticulture enology nonprofit. We focus on getting marginalized community members into wine through like immersive educational experiences where we meet up once a week for like 6 to 7 months, going to different wineries, vineyards, learning hands-on skills. It's a paid apprenticeship. We're partnered with UC Davis.
Okay, wait a minute. Did
Yes.
everybody catch what was just said? So the people that have previously been disenfranchised from the wine industry are being welcomed into a program that teaches them skills, viticulture and winemaking, and pays them.
Yeah. But I think it's more than that. I think those parts are important, but I think it's really important for people of color, queer people, to be able to go into very fancy white spaces and be treated with respect. That's possible because of Steve Mathiasen and Beth Forrestal making UC Davis open. And it's a really weird space sometimes to be in, wineries that aren't kind, and we stopped that probably the first year. We would go to a couple of places and people were pretty rude, kind of angry, and we were able to shut that part down. But it feels good. It feels good to be amongst people that look like you or have been through similar experiences, to be able to go into really nice places where you're not always welcome, and to enjoy things that everybody should be able to enjoy. But the Davis parts, I feel like one of the most special things, like higher education seems, I don't know, I don't really care about school. I like it, it's great, I love learning, but I don't like paying for it. I think everybody should be able to learn for free. So being able to take people literally for free while paying them, I think is what we should be doing in American education. And also getting to use wealthy people's equipment. It's pretty tight. Using free grapes that were just gonna go to waste, that kind of stuff. It's introduced us to so many good people in the community that I think we don't talk about. And I think, you know, it's not just asking, I think it's like being in these spaces where you meet like-minded people, that then your story gets to meet and touch other people, word of mouth. And then that's kind of how it's happened. Is like when people say the word organic, I feel like this is actually organic. A lot of older white people came to me after like a New York Times article and said that I had great marketing and PR. And I felt like that was very rude because I don't do anything. I just do my job. And I think that's hard for people to fathom, that if you put work in, that good things will actually come about it. So I think that's one of the things that I like showing people the most in the apprenticeship is, now's your time to meet someone, you should open your mouth and say something. If you want a job, you should ask them if there's a position available, if there's something you can do here, if they have land available. I don't know, it's like, where I grew up, people say closed mouths don't get fed and slow feet don't eat. And that's something that, you know, where I live in San Francisco, no one's gonna take care of you. And I feel like that's even worse out in places like this. I come from the South, from the Midwest, and it's really hard to survive. So it's really scary seeing an industry with so much privilege in it, and people don't know how to navigate it, and it's just farming.
Well, and the privilege is in a very specific aspect of the
Yes.
industry, and
Yeah.
all of that depends on people that are not being welcomed into.
Yeah, and
those
it's a lot of
benefits.
optics. It's a lot of what people want to see. And I don't know, I just got back from a trip in Virginia, and I felt like I had to relive this experience of the American past and slavery and things like that. And I think about it a lot when I'm in Napa and Sonoma, and that people aren't recognized, that they don't get the credit, that they're fighting for housing and food. And I think, I don't know, it's weird. It doesn't make sense that that's what we're even having this discussion about, that people don't know how to take care of their community, you know?
The farm workers that sustain this community, they rent living rooms to make ends meet. They live in garages. They have to sleep in their cars when they don't have enough money to pay their rent. And it's a consistent and chronic homelessness that happens 3 months out of the year. If they do live far away and they have to drive 2 hours, during harvest season, you're harvesting at crazy hours of the day. So you sleep in your car, you don't have a place to shower, you eat out, which means you're spending more money on food, and you don't have an ability to eat as healthy because you can't afford high-end food, farm to table, market rate food, right? And on the subject of housing, land access always becomes one of the biggest hurdles in Sonoma Valley. And I'd like to highlight that it isn't just land access, though. It is where the housing the opportunity, so land access, the type of housing that could be built, what are the opportunities, what do our farm workers and the composition of our farm workers look like? Who are the farm workers in Sonoma Valley? We don't know that. We don't have the data on it yet, but we're gonna build that out. You laugh because you know. But We need to work collectively to understand who our farm workers are, what their family compositions look like, what their housing needs are, what the opportunity parcels are here in the valley, and then backfill that with how we're going to make it happen. And how, if in the process of identifying housing opportunities or parcel opportunities for housing, a land or a piece of property is not feasible, how can we switch it over, if not housing, food production, if not food production, housing? And what does that look like, right? Kim, amazingly, connected me to Norman Gilroy, and we just met with Norman Gilroy this morning. He has a 2.5-acre farm here in Sonoma that's been farmed by his wife, who recently passed, over the last 20 years. Through that connection, in Los Jardines del Pueblo, I brought Zeke out, and this morning he turned over the farm and agreed to allow us to farm the 2.5 acres that are gonna produce over 50,000 pounds of produce for our farm workers and our low-income families. And so what does that look like? Just ask. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to ask.
Well, so what you're saying, so you said connection, and I think that's the biggest thing, is like people are selfish with their connections. They're selfish with how they share their friends and money people and information. And I think that's my favorite thing to do, is give everything away.
Yeah.
And that's not a very capitalist thing. Yeah, the gatekeeping part is dangerous. Yeah.
And it's also treating our community members like they're also a commodity that we're exchanging.
What am I going to get from someone?
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so one of the challenges with Sonoma County that we keep kind of revolving around is there's no centralized leadership for the county in a practical sense. So one of the things that happened with Maria's housing assessment for Napa's local government is built very differently. Some of that makes sense because of geography, blah, blah, blah. But the point is that Napa has created an initiative to have centralized leadership because they recognize that's how they can do things for the valley, for Napa Valley, Napa County. Sonoma County doesn't have that. So we have to shift gears to create change and create programs that actually can assist. And what we've been hearing is having venues like this, spaces like Erin was talking about, that we open up to serve conversations and challenge each other to recognize what needs are in place and ask each other to say, what is your skill set? How can you contribute? Yeah. That is actually becomes the kind of leadership that solves the problem. But Elise, I was hoping you could talk about that. Like, both of you, Maria and Elise, have dealt with this and the Future Collective has dealt with this by saying, okay, well, we can't do this on a county level, but we can address Sonoma Valley, and that's what Catalyst has helped set up through each of these programs. But I was hoping you could just talk about that. Like, how do you address leadership issues? What are those leadership issues?
You do it yourself. You know, leadership in Sonoma Valley needs to change. We are changing. We are here for a reason. Each sector needs to have its own leadership, and each pillar needs to come together in leadership as well. In the food area, we're creating a local leadership. We have about 10 to 15 people, quite a few people in this room are in this leadership network. We come back to a learning circle at a county level. Each district has a representative, and we'll be proposing another county model to be above us for food insecurity in our county. We need to be doing this in every pillar, and we need to be talking within our pillars. We have to do it. We have to step in ourselves because the county is not going to do it for us. So we need to create it. We need to somehow sustain it financially, and we need to keep building ourselves.
Something to remember too is, like, we see this on the national level a lot right now, but also historically, local, statewide, nationally, that we elect representatives to serve us. Government is elected to serve our needs as community members. And often, as some of those representatives are not actually listening to the communities in need. And we have to remember that might be because we're not speaking up enough, right? It's too easy to say, well, that SOB, so-and-so elected person is the problem. But if we are not communicating what we need, we are actually part of the problem. So we have responsibility in that sense too. But yeah, please go ahead.
One thing is, on the do-it-yourself, that hit a trigger. Because,
Oh yeah, no.
Because I wasn't going to bring this up, but I'm currently building my way out of housing instability. I'm building a little tiny house on wheels, all from the ground up, learning every process and aspect of it. And that model of me building my way out of housing instability is going to be applied to farm workers and how we're going to utilize what I've learned and the skill set that I've built to be able to build housing for farm workers. Elise is first on the list. We're going to start with her first tiny home. But other than that, we're going to build these units for farm workers and collaborate with other folks who are willing to do this type of work. It isn't one unit is going to solve all housing, but it's this one unit type could get built by farm workers when they're done working for the season, right? We were just having a conversation with Ned about this. And a do-it-yourself model, it can't be me going to Permit Sonoma and saying, hey, please, or going to the CDC and being like, hey, please, go build more housing, go build more infill housing, because that's not how it works. So within the do-it-yourself model, we're doing it ourselves here in this space, and picking off each other's brains is going to be the way that we're going to accomplish the things fast, now, and support the short term, but create a long-term strategy. And that's what we're hoping for today. Yeah.
Yeah, and so doing it yourself actually also means doing it together, right? That's the thing we need to remember. So Lucy, though, you're working in an example of creating leadership from a group of disparate farmers, right? So could you talk us through how you and the team have made that work with Feed?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking like Feed did it ourselves, and now we are have $5 million in sales a year, and I think yeah, that's huge. And Feed wasn't always a co-op; we became a co-op, and I think that has fortified the business itself and created something bigger than the founder's vision to build an idea, which was to see a need and to fill it. And it does it does require vision and dedication. And Tim, our founder, worked all the time to make this vision work. And not everyone has that juice in them. And so it's amazing when people have it and bring people around them to make something happen. So I think it's true. I mean, Feed is a living example of what you're talking about, and the do-it-yourself model, and build it up. And not every project is going to hit every need of every community, but by collaborating and coming together, I think you can start to see real benefits, and also community ownership. And I think that's where I keep coming back, is I want to see working people owning what they're doing. Not being reliant, but owning, by owning the businesses, becoming cooperatives, thinking about autonomy in new ways that are, and so I really want to see those types of movements build and allow for there to be strength in self-realization, self-actualization, strength, determining our own needs and building them ourselves. And I am the co-op evangelist, but I do truly believe that is a very, very clear way to do it, and difficult. And our culture does not like to collaborate, does not like to trust, does not like to share risk. And so we avoid that. But I think that's where you see just like ownership living in a few number of hands in this valley, especially when it comes to land. And yeah, I'd love to see that change.
So one of the things that's not been said in this series so far, but that's implicit in an implicit need in making these kinds of things happen, is founders have to be willing to trust that they've done such a good job building the thing that they have built that it will continue to succeed in collaboration with new visions. The founder problem is that when we work so hard to create something, it's really hard to let it go. But also, it's really hard to let it go in specific ways, such as allowing that it's a new time. It means it has to be done differently. And I haven't learned how to do it that way. So we're having to recognize our own limitations. We're having to trust that we've done sometimes we think, I just don't want to give it up. But actually, underneath that is this it's a sense of self-doubt. If we have done a good job creating something, then we can trust it has a kind of strength that can be sustained through other people as well.
And oftentimes there really is no way to get a full return on your sweat equity and the work that you've put into something.
Yeah, you got to feel good about it.
and there's if you are passing something on in the betterment of a community, it often means that you will not make back whatever you valued all that work at. And so I've seen that happen too, where you try to put a dollar amount on a founder's work and it's impossible.
Yeah. Well, and
unless they're selling to whatever tech company that's going to give them $300 million to like write code to, I don't know, have a digital pet or whatever.
Well,
And
She's very passionate about that.
but the thing is that $3 million fairly being distributed to the people that have done the work to make that digital pet possible? Okay, so another version of this, though, is again, like we've been doing here, creating community spaces. And so, Christopher, I was hoping you could tell us about Friend of Friends and your goals with it.
Yeah, so I have a wine shop in San Francisco called Friend of a Friend. It's in North Beach. And my goal is just to use it like all the other spaces and make it open to the community and make it accessible for people. I mean, the focus on the wine side is organic, regenerative, biodynamic wines. The style of service is just being kind to people and treating everyone with the same level of respect and allowing people to have hard conversations. Yeah, I was saying earlier that I ask everybody about what they do when they come in, and it's not to pry, but it's more to learn about people in my community, and then you find, similarities, common interests. You find out ways that you can help other people. I think when you ask people about themselves, they find out ways that they can want to help you. So I think the name Friend of a Friend is also like part of that everybody probably knows someone or is very more similar than separate. But yeah, I mean, I let the space be open to people for free. If they have an art show, if they have an idea of something they want to do, I just tell them to take over the shop. I mean, I trust people aren't going to like destroy anything. And I'm usually there anyway, so I like it. It brings people in that I would have never met, and it makes the neighborhood a lot cooler and a lot more diverse than North Beach usually would be. And it gives people, it's funny, like a black photographer took over the space. His parents flew down from Seattle to come see his show, and it was a really cool experience for them to tell me that he didn't realize that it was possible for someone to let him use the space, which is weird. So many people already have businesses and you close them and you don't do anything with them while they're closed.
Well, and this actually contradicts the quick comment you made at the beginning. You just want to use it as other people use their spaces. And the point I'm bringing up is that you just said other people don't use their spaces.
Oh, no,
like
yeah,
that.
no. I find it crazy, especially living in San Francisco, how many people complain about our city being dead and nothing's going on and that things are boring. And I'm like, open your restaurant and let somebody else use it. Let there be competition or let there be collaboration. But every day that you're paying rent for it not being open, you're wasting time. You're wasting space. You're wasting experiences. So I don't know. I feel like there's not actual competition, more collaboration. And you shouldn't be afraid of people around you. You should probably be the one who's actually helping them, and that'll pay off way better in the end.
Yeah, it connects to what you were saying, Lucy, that this isn't about line item resolution. It's about contributing to the ecosystem that we live in, helping to create the space and community we want to live in, right?
And that's everywhere. That's same thing, you know what I mean? Like, if you have extra space, extra land, and you don't know what to do, let somebody else plant it.
But we need an infrastructure to be able to go to that, right? Like, what is the infrastructure okay, I have land, where do I go to donate it? Or where do I go?
That says,
yeah, right.
I have this
Exactly.
much land.
Yeah.
This is what I need your land for.
Right.
.com.
Like the five pillars of a strong quality of life.com.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
On the founder issue, really quick, I'd like to highlight founders are by far absolutely passionate people who have built up a skill set.
Really
And I
important.
think every single person on this panel and most of you in this room are passionate human beings. That's why you're here, right? And so without that passion or that mission or that purpose, it's really difficult to pass something on and just see it and watch it die.
Okay,
right?
so this is a really
Yes.
important point because we're talking, what we haven't said so far in this whole series is we're talking about mission-driven activity. So what is that?
Mission-driven activity is something that falls within the scope of each individual person, I would say. I think each person here has their own mission and their own purpose. But I think Lucy wants to say something. Yeah, I think you do, because I think you're so mission-driven.
Go ahead, stand up, stand up!
I don't think you would be where you are today if you didn't have the mission in your mind that, co-ops. And for me, it's utilizing the privilege that I had. My parents are Mexican immigrants. They were, they crossed the border. I'm first gen, had the privilege of going to college, worked with farm workers when I was 18, cashing their checks, and noticed that they would send most of their money back to Mexico. For me, I said, why am I gonna not maximize my privilege of being a citizen and doing something to give back to them, right? And so when I wrote my thesis on farm worker housing and the subsidized quality of life measure for farm worker housing in Sonoma County, I realized it's the simple things. It's the fact that a farm worker had subsidized housing, that they were able to provide a stronger quality of life for their family. And housing, it's not the most important, but housing encompasses the foundation for a strong quality of life, right? At the end of the day, the mission is to protect our families and provide for our families and to care for our families.
And your family being able to do that is an example of now you've gone on to education and are returning that to help build the community.
Bringing it back.
So Elise, how would you describe your mission?
I think let's see here.
They didn't know I was
Big
going to ask them
question.
this, so yeah.
I think I really align with the idea of Dharma, and that my purpose and my duty is to go back to the land, to have that spiritual connection, and then my fight for justice is a mix between spirituality and justice. So I can have that connection with the land, and then I can fight for the people of that land, and I do that with my work. And so I think that's where my mission comes in, as long as there's food and community involved, and there's a fight that needs to happen, that is where I come in.
Lucy, how about you? How would you describe your mission? We've heard some allusions to it, but yeah.
I think my interest in proactivity around cooperatives is what I see as a solution to a broken economy, and a fear that we will lose small businesses if we don't allow workers to buy them at fair prices. And I'm anxious about that. And I see beauty in more people sharing ownership of a community. And that seems right and just to me. But in the framework of farming and land and all of that, I think this is just like a very basic human need and right to have access to land, to eat well, to grow food, to be under the sun, to watch the seasons, to understand your environment. And so that's how it aligns with farming.
And then Christopher?
Yeah, my mission has changed many times, but I think where it started was literally sitting in this vineyard in San Francisco and thinking about America's history with slavery and thinking about where Black people are in this country still around agriculture, land access, knowledge, financial literacy, food, all of these things, and just thinking that this vineyard I can throw a rock at the neighborhood where poor people live, and thinking about that still being something that's happening in America made me feel really sad. So I saw that as a direct problem, especially with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery being murdered because of the color of their skin and racism in this country, and thinking my skill set of working in restaurants and knowing wine knowledge and going to school for horticulture can all be used in this one tiny space, and hospitality can be immediately given back to people that look like me or have been through similar things. And that's where it starts, is creating a space where people can feel safe, feel welcome, feel seen. And then it's evolved into being well, how can we make money for other people? How can we create careers? How can we create experiences for people? And it keeps evolving. And yeah, so I think my mission is just try and do shit that I wish people would do for me.
Yeah, amen. So, we always end with like tasks, things we ask you to do. So the thing that I want to ask each of you to do, first and foremost, no matter what else you take from this, say thank you. As we say thank you to each other, that implies we're recognizing each other, we're seeing each other as valuable and meaningful. And the more we do that, the more we build trust, the more we find opportunity to share our spaces. And in sharing those spaces and conferring trust to someone, they are driven to confer it back to you. That's how we're building community. So that's the first thing, always, always say thank you. The second thing, the piece of homework that I want to invite you to consider, though, is what is your mission? American culture uses a lot of shame to remove us from our talents, to make us feel as if we shouldn't acknowledge them. I am a really good public speaker. I am really good at synthesizing ideas and guiding a conversation, and through that, bringing out hopefully the best of the panelists and a tactile understanding of what we're talking about. But I have to own that. I have to recognize that, not arrogantly. It doesn't make me better than anybody else. But I have to know those are only a couple of my skills. I have a lot. I have to know that I have that skill set to be able to contribute in the ways you've been seeing through this series. If I try to humbly deny them, I'm actually doing a disservice to my community. So what are your skill sets? What are you passionate about? Together, those become your purpose, which is your mission statement. So I'd invite you to do that as homework. What is your skill set? What are you passionate about? How do those come together as your mission? Okay, Elise, do you have things you want people to go off and do? Yeah.
Yeah, I have two things that I want people to do. One is there's cards on everybody's table that are green. I need you to sign up to become a volunteer or volunteer your produce in your garden to be given away to all of our food insecure initiatives. I would love that. We need gleaners.
Oh, could you just explain what gleaners are, though? Some people
Gleaners
don't know.
are, I'm organizing a group of volunteers to go to different properties within Sonoma Valley, including the Jardín de Pueblo, to pick produce, and then it goes back to our distribution spots within the valley. So please do that. My other thing that I would love people to do is please call your grandmother and get to know your neighbor. Break bread with your neighbor, understand their challenges, understand their passions, and start conversation.
I would like you all to connect with a community member who you wouldn't typically connect with, whether it's in a grocery store, whether it's at the gas station, whether it's at a store, anywhere, on the street, and just ask them a simple question, kind of get to know them. How are you? Hey, how you doing? And if they don't speak your language, pull out your phone, because we all have the technology, and use Google Translate. But connect with someone that you wouldn't typically connect with, and you'd be surprised at how many common ground things you have. And if anyone here is interested in supporting farm worker housing, you know where to find me. And if anyone's interested in building a tiny home, call me. Or if you have land, call me. Or if you have capital, call me. Just kidding. We're going to stop there, but call me.
Well, okay. This conversation happening on a national level about wealth disparity in this country is extreme, and this valley is an extreme example of that. And I feel like what I would like to request is specifically to the Catalyst Fund to consider other ways to utilize the wealth in this valley that do not have to do with tax beneficial donations through nonprofits. And I know that they're essential, and I'm not saying shut them down. I'm suggesting that there are other ways, and that wealthy people should be pushed to give money freely, to offer seed money, to offer low interest loans, other ways of providing our community ways to self-actualize and build housing trusts and land trusts that will give us access and allow to determine our own needs.
You can also subscribe to
And subscribe to the feed bin. Thank you. It's an amazing multi-farm CSA box through feed that will be delivered to your door, and it's a really easy way to support local farms.
And you can actually purchase a box to have donated too.
And you can donate them.
That's amazing.
One last thing, low interest loans, return on investment. Remember that, low interest loans, okay? Let's try something else. Okay, go ahead.
I would just say everybody keep being good people. Specifically 280, if you know anybody that can help in grant writing or anything fundraising, that's kind of it. Yeah, if you know farming spaces, vineyards, wineries, send them our way. But yeah, honestly, just treat your community nice and keep showing up to stuff like this because I think it helps.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
We have time for 1 or 2 questions. I let this go a little long intentionally. I did not lose track of time. I felt it was important to allow further conversation. So 1 or 2 questions, anyone? For the panel?
Wait, can I ask them a question? Yeah.
Oh, no, you go. Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Okay. One thing in Sonoma, what do you guys, if you have to say one thing, what's one thing you would really want to change about this community that you're not seeing right now? Yes, ma'am.
I'm involved with Catalyst, and I've really watched Kim do a lovely thing with the Future Collective, which is, she brought together her friend circle, and then they expanded, and other friends circles came, and other friends. So I bet none of you know everybody here, and I think I love your idea of friend of a friend. Everybody's got connections to something that you could invite in, and I think it's sort of easy to say, well, those wealthy landowners don't know that they could give their acre of land to go. They don't know, but somebody, like, you wouldn't ask, so I would just say we could all think of somebody we could ask to join us and come to Future Collective, or who do you know at the winery? I walk my dog in wineries all the time, and I know they have some acres that could grow food, and I think some of them would be really delighted to not be asked for a money donation all the time, to be asked for a couple acres. So I think what Kim's done here so beautifully is trying to build those concentric circles of who we all know. And I would just say, who do you know that you could connect with somebody else doing this work?
The other thing from a utility perspective, the wine industry in Sonoma is suffering. And as a media person, I know that wineries are constantly begging for media attention and PR. I would be psyched if I found out there's a cohort of wineries donating land for these, like, I would want to write about that. And if I wrote about it, other people would be like, oh my God, and they'd come here to find out, and they'd write about it. And then it would inspire people in other regions to do similar things. Like, that's going to get media attention. So pure utility, we have to remember economy is always part of this in the world we live in today. And so it's doing a good thing. It'll make you feel like you're a nice person. And it also is going to help build the attention you need to sustain a business.
Did you want to use Mike?
I just want to answer your question. Representation. I said this last time too, but we need representation. Probably very few of us in this room can vote for Sonoma, City of Sonoma, City Council, etc. And as was mentioned, we have poor county systems of leadership. We also need to replace our U.S. representative. It's time. And we don't have a real strong cadre of choices so far that I'm aware of.
I just had a house.
So, no, I don't want to get too real, but maybe there is somebody through this. Right, yeah. That's what we need to see.
That's tight.
Angela, you were going to ask it.
I just wanted to point out what you're doing with feed in the cooperative, and we just learned about a cooperative of winemakers who joined together. I can't remember, but one thing that the food security study also revealed is there are at least 15 individual nonprofits trying to do food in Sonoma Valley.
But they've been doing them separately.
Yeah, and there's literally no force on earth that can make nonprofits collaborate together.
Hey, I'm a force, Angela.
Working on it. Hey, there's two of us right here. But you spoke to the market forces. forces, right, that allowed you to be stronger and more competitive together. And so I think that there's something about that that needs to be applied to the plan.
Okay. Yes, Cody. Yeah.
I have a question for Christopher, actually. At the last discussion that the theme was labor, it came out of this idea of like the two sides of the town, basically the Latino and the non-Latino side. And as a farm worker myself, but not Latino, I've kind of longed for like more connection with my Latino colleagues. And there's friendship that forms, of course, and camaraderie. But at the end of the day, like we do a yearly farm dinner with the whole crew, and the Latino people don't end up coming. And that's fine; they don't have to come. But I've been feeling under-resourced into how to like extend, or to like bridge that, or like bring more of that togetherness. And I wonder if you have some advice or tips on that.
I think gift giving is always nice. Seriously. Like, I mean, you don't want to promote alcohol or anything, but have you noticed what type of beer they drink?
Modelo Especial.
Seriously, I think...
He read my mind. I don't know how we're synced up, but you just don't have enough Modelos at the party.
Yeah.
And carne asada, and or pico de gallo, and
Lunch.
or tequila.
lunch,
Fanta,
things like that.
Jarrito, Coca-Cola.
Seriously, I think it's
Let us
small
know. We
things
got
like
you.
that. If you start, because like I said, like feeding even the black community when I was giving things away for free, no one trusted it. But I think it's going to take time, and if you're consistent about actually trying. Do you speak Spanish at all?
Yeah.
Same thing, man. Just actually have real ass conversations in Spanish and ask them about their day and ask them what their families have been up to. Ask them ways, anything that they need. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think literally just sometimes bothering people about who they are is okay. You know what I mean? Mine? All of them. No. But you know what I mean? Like I think, because it would seem that you're prying or being weird, but I think at the end of the day, we all want to live and be happy, and I think you got to express that shit to them.
You have to remember that crying is a white construct.
Yeah,
Like, that doesn't
amen.
happen in Latino communities or people of color. We just,
Ask each other.
everybody's all up in each other's
If my
business,
aunt,
right?
if
So-
my auntie asks me, the rule is I tell her, okay? Like there's no notion of prying. She my auntie. That's what you do.
They know before you know.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Well, and also, oh, go ahead.
Just
No.
because we're talking about food, ask them where they're from Mexico. Ask them what kind of food they consume. Ask them the farm work that they're doing, if they did it in Mexico. Ask them if they used to make cheese. Like, connect over food, right? Not just alcohol, not just bring something, but connect over food, connect over culture. Like, oh, what kind of music do you like to listen to? I have a speaker, you know? And that's going to make their day. Trust me. Because when you, and this is another thing, maybe if there's any vineyard owners here, if you just had a speaker and you had a farm worker crew and you let them play music,
Oh, man.
you would, their quality of life would go up insanely, because maybe you can't pay them $1 more, but you can let them hear music that they like. It would make their day. So I'll just say that.
Well,
That was sick.
and this is a fundamental point that all of us can keep in mind, that we might intend something believing it will help, but we cannot have the positive impact we're seeking unless we actually pay attention to, value, and listen to the communities we're trying to connect with. Good intentions exist in your head, and they're really nice for you. Action is an external gift. And if you want to match action and intention, you have to listen, you have to connect, you have to find out where they're from and what they eat and what music they like. So I want, again, let's thank Catalyst, Future Collective, Dose Bar. And then really big time, thank you so much to all 4 of you.